All right, welcome back everyone to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling something that could totally change how we think about democracy. Virtual town
Oh,
halls.
yeah, this is a cool one.
Yeah, so I was reading this article. It's called Virtual Town Halls, UX for Inclusive Democracy. And it got me thinking, what if we could participate in these important discussions from literally anywhere, anytime?
That's the dream, right?
Totally. But the big question is, can technology really make democracy more accessible for everyone? I mean, that's a big claim.
It is, and it's something we need to look at carefully. But, the interesting thing is virtual town halls aren't just some futuristic idea. They're already happening.
Oh, for sure.
And they're showing some real potential. So think of them like online platforms, kind of like those Zoom meetings everyone's used to, but amped up, right?
Okay.
So citizens can join in on these discussions, talk to their leaders directly, even vote on policies all from home.
That's pretty amazing if you think about it. And the article mentions this stat that during the pandemic, when everything went virtual, participation in these town halls in some U.S. cities actually jumped by 20%.
Yeah, that's huge. It really shows you how much easier it became for people to get involved. Before you had to worry about getting time off work, finding childcare, dealing with traffic. All of that just went away.
Right. It just removes so many barriers. But was that just a temporary thing because of the pandemic? Or is there something more sustainable going on?
I think it's a bit of both. The pandemic definitely forced everyone's hand, but it also revealed how convenient virtual town halls could be. People could engage in these important discussions without rearranging their whole lives. That's a big win for inclusivity right there.
Absolutely. But, convenience is only part of the story. The article really emphasizes the importance of something called UX. That's user experience for those who aren't familiar. What's the connection between UX and making these town halls truly inclusive?
Well, imagine you're on a website that's a total mess, right? You
Hmm.
can't find anything, the text is tiny, and you're just clicking around getting frustrated.
Oh, I've been there, trust me.
Right. So, bad UX in a virtual town hall is basically the same thing. It pushes people away, especially older folks, people with disabilities, or anyone who's not super comfortable with technology.
Yeah, it creates a whole new set of barriers.
Exactly. So, if we're serious about making these platforms inclusive, we need to design them in a way that works for everyone. Simple, intuitive, and accessible, no matter your tech skills.
That makes total sense. And the article also brings up another big challenge, the digital divide.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
How does that impact access to these virtual town halls?
Well, it's simple. Not everyone has reliable internet access, right? And some people don't even have a device to get online. This is a huge problem, especially in rural communities, low-income areas, and for certain minority groups. So even though virtual town halls have this massive potential, we have to acknowledge this gap and find ways to bridge it.
So what can be done about this digital divide? Like, how do we even start to address something so big?
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, right? But there are definitely things we can do. Investing in infrastructure is a big one. Making sure broadband internet is available and affordable for everyone, especially in those underserved communities. And then there's the question of devices.
Yeah, not everyone can afford the latest gadgets.
Right. So providing affordable devices and digital literacy training is another big piece of the puzzle. And then, of course, when we're designing these platforms, we need to make sure they work even with limited bandwidth. Things like offering offline modes or text-based options for people who don't have super fast connections. Every little bit helps.
Those are some really practical solutions. But okay, let's say we get everyone online. We still have another challenge, keeping people engaged. I mean, staring at a screen just isn't the same as being in a room full of people, right?
Yeah, there's definitely something about that in-person energy that's hard to replicate.
Exactly. And the article actually points out that online town halls in the UK had a pretty low turnout back in 2021, like only 15%. So how do we make these virtual experiences more engaging and prevent them from becoming just another boring Zoom meeting?
Well, this is where good UX design comes in again.
Okay, I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah, for sure. One really promising approach is incorporating elements of gamification. Things like polls, quizzes, badges for participating, basically tapping into that human desire for a little reward and feedback.
I can see how that would make things more fun. But isn't there a risk of making these serious civic issues feel trivial?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. It's a balancing act for sure. The goal isn't to turn town halls into a game. It's about using those elements strategically. So sprinkle in some fun stuff to boost engagement, but never lose sight of the importance of the issues being discussed.
Right, so it's about enhancing the experience, not distracting from it.
Exactly. And there are some really cool examples of this being done well. The article highlights a case in Canada where they used these UX-focused apps with voice controls, and it totally boosted participation in Indigenous communities.
Oh yeah, that was a really interesting example.
Yeah.
What was it about that approach that made such a big difference?
It was all about tailoring the design to the community's needs and preferences, like that voice control feature. It was huge for elders who were more comfortable speaking than typing. It's a perfect example of how good design can remove those barriers and make civic engagement more accessible.
It really shows that a one-size-fits-all approach just won't cut it. But with all this talk about online engagement, we have to address the big concern, right? Security and privacy.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
I mean, we're talking about sensitive personal data here.
Yeah.
How do we make sure these platforms are secure and that people's information is protected?
You're absolutely right to bring that up. It's not something we can overlook. So first and foremost, we need strong encryption to protect user data during those town halls.
Okay, so that means even if someone intercepts the data, they can't read it, right?
Exactly. And then we need things like multi-factor authentication to prevent unauthorized access. And of course, clear data privacy policies that give users control over their information. Transparency and accountability are key to building trust, right?
Definitely. So looking ahead, what do you see as the future of virtual town halls? I mean, the article even mentions some pretty wild possibilities like using AR, VR, and AI. Could we one day be attending these town halls in metaverse?
It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. I mean, imagine putting on a VR headset and stepping into a virtual town hall. You're interacting with avatars of your neighbors, your elected officials. You can see data visualized in 3D, maybe even participate in simulations to see how different policies would play out in real time. That's powerful stuff.
It is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. But as with any new technology, we need to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind. How do we ensure that accessibility is a priority as these technologies evolve?
Accessibility has to be baked into the design right from the start. It can't be an afterthought. So we need to provide alternative ways to access these town halls for people who might not have a VR headset or a super fast internet connection. We need to make sure these platforms are compatible with assistive technologies.
So it sounds like virtual town halls have the power to truly revolutionize civic engagement, but only if we do it right.
I completely agree. It's not just about moving town halls online. It's about creating platforms that are engaging, inclusive, and secure. Platforms that give everyone a voice and make them feel empowered to shape their communities and their democracy.
Well said. So to wrap things up, here's a question for our listeners. Could you imagine your own community adopting virtual town halls? What benefits or challenges do you see? Think about it and let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you want to dive deeper into this topic, you can find a link to that full article, Virtual Town Halls, UX for Inclusive Democracy, in our show notes.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's a good one.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.